My name is Maurizio Patarnello. I'm the CEO of Nestle in Russia and in Eurasia. And I'm opening this conference. And I would like to open the conference by giving you a little bit of a broad view on Nestle in our region, first of all, very briefly. Then to open a little bit up to some global trends, and then focusing on Russia and talk a little bit about what everybody is now calling as a new reality. And then, of course, I will be happy to answer to your questions. Let me start, first of all, with giving you a quick view on what is Nestle all about in Russia and Eurasia. Is indeed Nestle company in this part of the world is very old. We like to say we've been here for 143 years. We like to say that Henri Nestle himself, the founder of Nestle, has opened the business for Nestle in St. Petersburg by having an agreement with a Russian merchant for baby food. Our presence, of course, have been discontinued during the Soviet time, and we have started again with an operating company almost just after the reopening of the Russian market. We employ directly 10,000 people. Indirectly, we go up to 15,000 people. We have 10 sales offices all across Russia, from Vladivostok to the west part. We have 11 production units. We practically manufacture in Russia almost everything, and 90%, let's say, of all it's sold in Russia is manufactured in Russia. And we have the largest coffee factory in Europe for Nestle in Krasnodar, the largest chocolate factory of Nestle in Europe in Samara, and different units manufacturing from breakfast cereals to cereals for all the family, what we call kasha, infant cereals, chocolate, as I mentioned before, coffee, and milk even in Uzbekistan. It's the undisputed leader in nutrition in Russia. This is, let's say, what it comes out from the research. Nestle, who is the leading nutrition, health and wellness company, is also recognized in Russia as being the most known nutrition company. And let's say we have been experiencing a good growth in the last few years, double-digit growth until 2013. Of course, I cannot disclose 2014, as you can imagine. And we are in excess of 78 billion. We were in 2013, 78 billion rubles. Just to give you a little bit of the footprint we have, briefly, I mentioned already a few points. Since we entered in the market, we invested in excess of $1.8 billion of direct investment. We manufacture more than 90% of what we sell. Of course, these give us a significant cost advantage, because being present in the country allows to build this competitive advantage. It also allows us to better respond to the consumer needs, and indeed Russia is different from many other countries in the West and in the East when it comes to consumer habits on consuming food and beverage. And we source from Russia the great majority of what we then supply, with the exception, of course, of coffee and cocoa that are not grown in Russia, as you can imagine. But for the rest, whether it is raw materials or packaging materials, we have been developing a plan, and we continue to develop a plan to source from Russia all we can by developing new suppliers that will be then suitable to reach the Nestle standards. This is a snapshot of our portfolio. As you can see, is made of brands and products that you know. We have more than 50 brands, more than 600 products in the Russian market, from ice cream, coffee, chocolate, baby food, brands well known as Nesquik, Nescafe, Fitness, and we have now experiencing good growth in the pet food business, where we have brands like Felix and Gourmet, which are part of our division called Purina Pet Care. As I mentioned before, nutrition is at the heart of our vision and also a mission for us. And in Russia, we are well known as being a nutrition leading company. We do it through a certain number of plans that I share here with you. One is related to the baby food and is the program of Start Healthy, Stay Healthy, which is addressed to the mother for the babies up to 1,000 days. We have, of course, consumer communication related to our nutritional programs. We are very proud of having now for a long time, more than 10 years, the Healthy Kids program. This is a program of developing good consumer, kids behavior, nutritional behavior in the schools with the teachers, with the Minister of Education and Health. We have reached more than 1 million pupils since we started with this program to educate them to healthy behavior when it comes to nutrition. And then Healthy Choice is another communication program in which we bundle a certain number of products that have strong nutritional foundations of Nestle and that are well known by the consumers. Now, this is briefly to tell you about Nestle, and now let me give you an overview on what we believe are important trends globally with an effect also in Russia. And the first is about healthy eating. And healthy eating you can see in different dimensions. One of them is about addressing two enemies that we believe will become more and more important in the future in the world. These are sugar and salt. And we believe that these two are important challenges, how to address them for all the companies, and we take it very seriously, as the industry will have to deal with these two enemies in a very, very serious way. But healthy eating is also about, let's say, organic, natural. We see more and more global trend about gluten, and let's say that is taking an important place in many countries, although in Russia is still not yet well perceived by the consumer, but we believe it may even come in Russia soon. And also the concept of manufactured locally and local food seems to be an important trend for us. Income inequality, it's everywhere present and is present also in Russia, where you see that income inequalities is about a small part of the population becoming more and more affluent, and the majority of the population becoming less affluent. This, of course, has an impact in terms of the consumer behaviors, and we see it present also in Russia. Automatization is what we believe is the trend which is behind all what we call internet, e-commerce, social media, but it's not only about that, it's about also the increasing utilization of robots everywhere for all kind of usage, whether it is in our business or even by the consumers at home. These are trends that we see very, very seriously, also having an important place in Russia, and let's say we experience it already as not only a trend but a reality of every day. Change in the population, which is a combination of two things, aging population and at the same time immigrants. And also we see that this is strongly present in Russia, where we have an aging population, although in the latest time the population in Russia is back to be stabilized and even growing, but the majority of the growth is not coming from newborns, it's coming from two things. First of all, the life expectation growing, and on the other hand, the immigrants coming to Russia. But this is a trend that the Western world has been experiencing for many, many years, and Western Europe, just after the US, is now strongly affected and is changing not only the demography but also the social behaviors of the Western world. And then let me take you a little bit, after having given a snapshot of the global trends, give me our view about Russia, because let's say the new reality is let's say is there already, is no more, it's a reality that we live every day. And this, we have seen it in different dimensions, having a strong impact on our business, and I am sure in many of your businesses as well. We have seen, experienced a fight from the authorities to tobacco, and a changing in the retailing business through a certain number of laws that have been introduced in the country to limit the sales of alcohol and tobacco in the kiosk, which has reduced the presence, or let's say contributed to reduce the presence of the numeric distribution in this country by about 100,000 point of sales, from 300,000 or 250, depending what business are you in, to, let's say, today 200,000 or 150,000, depending on what business are you in. And other factors, so this has impacted significantly the retailing and the consumer behaviors. But then, as you know, other factors came in: Ukraine, the devaluation of the ruble. I don't need to elaborate about it, because we now all live with our handed checking more than one time per day whether the situation is dramatic or not. And related to it, the sanctions, and I have to say that this has impacted lots of business. We were, let's say, well prepared, as I mentioned before. We have not been experiencing it because we have been manufacturing 90% of our goods now for already quite some time. And of course, related to it, the expected inflation, which will grow with the growth of the devaluation. However, I would like also to give some positive messages because it's based on facts. When we have a look of the, let's say, consumer confidence growth, Russia, we have seen, let's say, lately, maybe not in the last few months, but let's say in the course of 2014, a certain return to a certain confidence from the consumers. As you can see here, let's say there is a certain comeback of the consumer confidence, which was actually in 2013 more on the low side. And let's say it's growing as much as growing for the globe, and actually at the higher speed than Western Europe. Another important thing that I would like, let's say, to share with you is, let's say, in reality, the consumer, despite all what we have seen and experienced, still has a certain optimism in the long term. Let's say, positive effect is coming from the fact that the people believe that this sanction will actually force, in a way, the country to become more independent when it comes to, let's say, the supply of goods, and less dependent on the import. As we know, the economy of the country is mostly based on oil and gas, so this situation will hopefully, this is the confidence of the consumer, force the country to being more industrialized and more independent, which will be translated into agricultural development, improvement of the quality products, and let's say these three factors are in a way all positive or perceived in a positive way by the people that have been interviewed. Of course, there is a strong concern on the impact on the pricing. This is probably the most difficult part that the population will have to deal in the course of 2015 and already in the last quarter of 2014. And these, let's say, all the businesses are increasing the prices, and this is perceived by the consumer as a real threat. In fact, let's say 35% of the people are concerned about price increase, 12% only about product deficit or assortment, and let's say there is also another significant part of the population that does not seem to be affected at all, that do not see negative impacts from what we call this new reality. And let's say also you can see, as I mentioned before, and in relation to the fact that I would say not all is negative now in Russia as a consequence of this new reality. You can see here, this shows the nominal value, okay, of the food and beverage categories trend. Let's say, and you can see that, let's say, in the last few months, it was again coming back as a result of, on one hand, value, and on the other hand, a volume impact. So there is not only a value impact, there is also a volume impact that, let's say, people have been consuming more, not only in value, is not only a nominal price increase related, but also there is more consumption in volume. And let's say, to finish with my presentation, let's say, what I would like to share with you what is really driving this value growth in the food and beverage business in Russia, which has been quite significant, 11.2% overall, which is not a small amount. First of all, part of it is related to the inflationary environment for the dairy business, because we experience, although we are not very present in the dairy business, but let's say we have seen the growth of the prices in the dairy business, which account for 4.2% of the total. Then, let's say, the top players also have contributed with 2.3%. Private labels, relatively small, still in Russia is not very strong, the presence of the private label, although we believe that in the future it will grow. And then the other players playing for 3.7%. But let's say, as a message, which in a way also is a positive message to share with you, is that so far, although the concerns of the population is there, although they are afraid about the consumers, about the price increase, but let's say most of the players in the food and beverage business have been able to pass the price increase without really depressing the categories. Now, we have to see what will happen in the course of 2015. The first 2 quarters will be very important to see what will be the consumer behavior. But let's say it's true that the market has changed, there is a new reality, but not everything is bad, and still we see a positive growth in the country. Last slide, let's say, consumer that price growth, what is and what we expect to be the consumer response to this new situation. 63% of the consumers, they say they will be more thrifting. 49% they say they will switch to trade down, lower price. 27% will look for more promo, although in most of our categories where we operate already the level of promotion is relatively high. Let's say, but only 10% will cut on the frequency, and let's say, you can say 1/3 will cut on or will buy only with essential. Let's say, so it's again a mixed bag. Not everything is bad. People are also planning in a way to adapt to the new situation and do not really, let's say, have the intention to reduce their consumption. But they will become more wise, they will look more for promotion, and of course, they, in some cases, trade down. That's the message I wanted to share with you. Let's say, there are, of course, we are all concerned, but let's say, we still believe that this market, in the medium term and in the long term, maybe 15, we will see how it will be, still present a very strong attraction for our company, and we are still planning to continue to invest in this country. Thank you.